staying with a cheater and what to do. Should I stay or go? I need some advice on what to do because I am lost. I, F21, have been with my partner, M22, for almost 6 years. Started dating at 15 and 16. In September 2024, my partner and I went ring shopping. We've been talking about marriage and engagement for a while. I've been ready basically since we turned 18, but it's taken him a while to also be ready. The ring shopping was initiated by him. We had agreed that we weren't looking to buy anything and that we were simply just looking. An idea was that I'd tell him what I liked, he'd come back at a later day to buy something. When we got to the store, I instantly fell in love with a ring. I tried in literally hundreds of rings, but kept falling back to that one. It was the one. My partner bought it while we were there. Said it was one of the easiest purchases of his life. He's really weird about money, so for him to drop a large amount right then and there was pretty big. Things were great. He was planning this surprise trip in March over our 6-year anniversary, where I knew he was going to propose. We had another vacation in April. I thought we were solid. He had even asked my dad for his permission to marry me, but we weren't. In December, he went on a work trip where he cheated on me. I found out he cheated once he got home. He admitted to it, admitted that he was still talking to the girl, and that he actually hasn't loved me for the last 3 years of the relationship. I asked him why he bought the ring, and he couldn't really give me an answer. I left. I will admit I didn't want to. I wanted to forgive him and love him, but he asked me to leave, so I did. A week later, and he shows up at my work, tells me he's sorry, he knows that he fucked up, he wants to be better. At first, I'm like, yeah, here's the classic I cheated on you and lost you, and now I'm here crying about it. Pity me. Cheaters act that everyone seems to do. But also, I've never seen this man so emotionally vulnerable in the entire time we've been together. So I hear him out. He agrees to individual therapy and couples therapy, which he strongly was against forever, and church. He's not, again, strongly against it for forever. He's been doing these things, and we've been going on more dates than ever. He listens to me when I cry. He doesn't get upset with me for not trusting him and understands the pain and trauma he's put me through. I've been cheated on before, and when I found out with the others, I immediately got up and left. No doubt in my mind that I was doing the wrong thing by leaving, and I instantly just stopped caring about them. I know I was younger and the relationships weren't as long, so maybe that's why, but I didn't feel like that when I found out this time around. All I wanted to do was hug my partner and make sure that he felt loved and cared for and that he understood that I forgave him. However, I really want to be with him, but I know I don't deserve to be cheated on. No one does, and I hate how torn I am. I can see the effort he is putting in to be a better person, and I do see the slight change in him already, but am so torn. Part of me hates that he's getting what he wants by having me back. Part of me knows that he doesn't deserve that, but I want everything with him. He's my person. Please, what should I do? My parents say that they are supporting me either way and that he's just a person and people make mistakes. My friends have all dumped me because I'm choosing to give my partner another chance. I don't know how to feel or what to do. Please help. Story 2. Husband is always paranoid I'm cheating. Part 8 plus 8. I, 35F, have been married to my husband, 48M, for almost 13 years, and we have 3 children together. He is constantly accusing me of cheating on a weekly and sometimes daily basis over the last 13 years. The incident. A few hours ago, he asked me when was the last time we were intimate. I said, probably like 2/3 days ago, because in my mind, that's our norm most of the time. Well, that was a huge mistake on my part because he said the last time was 12 days ago. I tried to remember whether he was correct or not, and I couldn't. So I just said, oh, okay. I'm not. So then he started speaking aggressively to me, saying, that's proof I cheated and where was I on Friday, etc. Because I had an outing but I'm usually always home. At first, I attempted to reassure him and was trying to calmly explain that's not true and you should believe me because. But then I remembered he had a 2-year affair, mind you, 10 years ago, and he never apologized for it. Then I got pissed and started to cry, and I'm not a crier, saying, every day you accuse of something that only you've done in the marriage and you've never apologized for it. He looked at me with disgust and said he's not going to apologize and that I'm mentally ill and he should have never married me. I just want to know if I'm crazy or not. Is this all in my head or what? Because I don't think I'm overreacting. He is known to revise the truth at any given moment, so I could be correct. And he's just gaslighting me into this whole argument for his own twisted reasons. Additionally, the real truth is, I've been thinking about leaving for a long time, and the tears were about the thought of the relationship ending because the constant accusations, and worse, are draining to say the least. Story 3. I'm lost. I don't know what my husband wants. I, 31F, and my husband, 37M, have been married for 3 years. I'm not originally from the USA, but he is. I find ourselves clashing on several things. To give a little detail, he has MS and is mostly fatigued. This is challenging to me because when I'm sick, he compares my pain to his. He never feels pity for me when I'm tired because to him, it's normal on a daily. Or in my culture, he's supposed to pay dowry of about $6,000, but he refuses to make effort to save for it and complains to all his family about it. We have a toddler that occupies me all day, along with cooking, cleaning, and all chores. At night, I have online classes I attend. However, he comes home saying he's tired, so he won't even take the baby to bed. I have to stay awake with baby until like 11 p.m. and then study while exhausted. Dun dun dun. He never gives me any free time to study or play with baby so that I get some free time. What bothers me the most, he complains that I'm just staying home, not contributing much to bills. I have a part-time job that barely pays me anything, so I cover only gas and electric bills. He sort of underlooks me because I don't help as much. In my defense, I do all house chores, and he should be content with paying other bills. Whenever we talk about uncomfortable topics like finances, we end up fighting, saying I'm negging him. He has emotional outbursts and blames them on his MS medication. After he calls me nasty names, I feel sad and I'm starting to resent him. Guys, is this normal? Edit 1. About dowry. It's not really about the money because I can raise the 6 myself and send it myself, but it's more of him showing that he respects my culture and does what they expect of him. I left my country, miss my friends and family, and oh, the food. In short, I made a bigger sacrifice here, so he should at least respect the one thing about people saying divorce. No, people, not every situation is solved by a divorce. To me, if someone wakes up and chooses to be with me and not cheat on me, I will fight for that person to the end. Marriage isn't a bed of roses. That's why I asked advice here, because I felt I was losing touch with reality, because sometimes it gets really hard. To add, he's a very good person outside of his short temper. Much as he wants me to pay more bills, he always provides whatever I ask him, the small things. He works more than most men I know despite of his sickness, so that means loss. So he has a good side too, or else I wouldn't be here. Story 4. I emotionally cheated on my abusive partner after he verbally abused me. About a year in our relationship, it's been a rocky 4 years, I decided I had enough of my partner's verbal and emotional abuse. He would be incredibly nice, supportive, and kind to me most of the time. I genuinely do love him deeply. But then once every 4-6 weeks, he would let out his rage and behave abusively to me. It is good most of the time, but it has been a confusing relationship of hot/cold, love/hate, being treated amazingly slash being treated abusively. Hot at that time, he had already yelled slash screamed at me, called me despicable, vile names, attempted to abandon me in an unfamiliar place without my belongings, woken me up in the night to scream at me, would start fights that would exhaust me and go on for hours until 4 slash 5 a.m., acted aggressive slash intimidating, threatened to dump slash discard me, use the silent treatment, and dump me for a short time. And the fights would start over very small things like me leaving a dish out, me paying attention to my work and not answering him right away, making him a few minutes late to get brunch, etc. After one of these particularly horrific episodes, which started over something very minuscule, where he berated and yelled at me for hours, he discarded me and told me we are over and done. I got a motel to take a break for a bit and was about to leave when he changed his mind and suddenly realized he couldn't lose me. In desperation, he held a knife to his throat and threatened to slit it in front of me if I left. I was in a state of shock and dissociated from my body completely. I told him if he didn't put the knife down, I'd call the cops. But he finally put it down, and I spent several hours calming him down. After I told him I needed space and asked if he would let me go to the motel for the night, he said yes. I planned to get some sleep there and recover after the incident while creating a plan to leave him, since I was thousands of miles away from any family. At the motel, I was in shock, traumatized from it, and I was too afraid to tell my mom or my friends about what happened because I didn't want them to know. First, I called a domestic violence hotline, and they told me I was being abused and that I was in danger and needed to find a safe plan to leave. Then I called up a male friend on the phone who I'd recently started chatting with a few weeks prior. I'd started to develop some feelings for him in the past few days prior to that, since my boyfriend was not treating me well. Until then, our conversations had been platonic, and he knew about some of the emotional slash verbal abuse I was experiencing. I told him what happened, that I was scared and shocked, and I didn't know what to do. This friend was calm, kind, and reassuring and provided me with warmth. He told me that he worried for my safety and how he'd help me find a plan to leave, and he even offered me to stay with him slash meet up with him if I needed. He said that I didn't deserve to be treated that way and that he would never treat a woman like that. I was grateful to have someone to open up to. Then he told me that he had feelings for me and started to become flirtatious. Still in a state of complete shock slash dissociation, I reciprocated the flirtation. I was just so relieved to have someone be kind to me. And very quickly, the discussion became sexual in nature. I reciprocated that as well for about half an hour before I snapped out of it and realized what I'd done. I immediately felt absolutely disgusted and ashamed with myself. I realized very quickly that this friend had actually taken advantage of my state of vulnerability and wanted to use me for sex. I noticed that he was following hundreds of pages of half-naked women on social media and became immediately repulsed. I told him that I felt he'd taken advantage of me for his sexual interests. Immediately stopped talking to him, deleted our conversation, and blocked him permanently. I have never talked to him again. A few hours after that, I felt absolutely horrified at what I'd done. I felt like a deceptive, terrible cheater. I cried, felt confused, and missed my boyfriend, feeling like I'd made a terrible mistake to leave. In that moment of weakness, I agreed to allow my boyfriend to come to the motel a few hours later to chat. I felt so weak, confused, and conflicted that I came back with him the next day. He apologized for his behavior, told me he wouldn't treat me like that again, and we made up. My recollection of this event is so hazy because I was in a state of total shock and blocked it from my memory. I have never flirted with or cheated, emotionally or physically, on him since that traumatic night. It's been a few years since, with multiple additional episodes of emotional slash verbal abuse then, and I have never had the courage to tell him about that day. It haunts me in my dreams, and sometimes I wake up in a sweat feeling panicked and guilty. I'm terrified that he'll find out, and also terrified that I'm a horrible, deceptive person. He already suspects that I'm cheating all the time, And if he finds out about this, he'll never let it go. I have carried this guilt with me for so long, and I can't let it go. I just have to get this off my chest. TL. DR. After extensive emotional/verbal abuse, I planned to leave to take a break, but was planning to leave my boyfriend. But he stopped me from leaving with a suicide threat. I stayed to calm him down, then left to the motel, where I was vulnerable and talked to a male friend. That friend started flirting with me. I reciprocated, and we had a discussion that became sexual for a short period of time. After realizing I was being taken advantage of, I stopped it immediately and blocked him permanently. I felt terrible about it and got back with my boyfriend after, but still never told him about that day. This haunts me still, and I feel so disgusted and guilty about story 5 by wanting to walk away. This is so messy. I don't have many, if any, screenshot because he'd rather just be the way he is to my face. So bear with me trying to explain everything. Also, I feel slightly crazy even talking about this cause no one is my life will listen. I, the 31, and my husband 33, let's call him Jake, have been married for almost 3 years, together for almost 4 years. When we first started dating, I should have seen the red flags and BS, but I always gave him the benefit of the doubt. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. My son, now 13, and I lived at my dad's for reasons beyond my control. I would go over to Jake's and have dinner and watch movies after my kiddo was asleep, or at school at first. It got to the point I was spending a lot of time at Jake's house. I also was spending the majority of time there cleaning, cooking, and taking care of his dog. I thought I was helping and being the good girlfriend. Then he decided he wanted to meet my son and invited us for dinner. Jake showed up late and drunk to dinner. His excuse? He was out fishing with the boys. After a while, my kiddo wanted to go over all the time, which was fine by me. But then when we would try to go home for a few days, Jake would be super clingy and almost beg us to stay. Jake would also make rude remarks about how much I do at my dad's, which was essentially the same things I did for Jake. But my kiddo and I ended up moving in with Jake eventually. Fast forward about a month, and Jake started being more strict about my son, saying things like I let him walk all over me, etc. In reality, I knew that some of what he was saying was a bit true. I'm a pushover sometimes, but I also knew most of it was just a kid being a kid situation. It became as if he was almost jealous of my son, which I didn't realize at the time. Then came the insane punishments. Sit on a chair for hours at a time kind of punishments. I really was convinced that I was breaking the bad habits, as Jake would put it. We end up moving to another part of the country together. I know now this was stupid of me. When we first got there, we were trying to open a business. All the work of opening the business, paperwork, etc., fell on me. I was the only one who cooked, cleaned, took care of the kiddo and dogs, on top of trying to get this business open. He just wandered around complaining, continuing to be awful to the kiddo, or sat on his ass. We got married. I wasn't allowed to tell any of my family they were invited until it was too late for them to make arrangements to come. So we got married by a stranger, with neighbors, strangers to us as well, as witnesses. No one to walk me down the aisle. It's one of my biggest regrets. The business never got off the ground because of some vandalism that left us with no building, so I stuck it out for another 6 months or so, being the only one who supported us or did anything. I finally had enough and told him I was leaving him and going home. My dad drove across the country to come help me move back home. Jake managed to whine to my father enough that my father let Jake move in with us back home. To be fair to Dad, he didn't know the extent of what was going on. We reconciled, and he got a job that required a huge career change and financial strain, and I found us a place to live. But I'm telling you that he has never once been grateful for that place we now live in. He made me feel like shit for taking the place, even though I love it so much. When we argue, he throws in jabs about living there and how much he hates it. At points in our marriage, I was the only one working or working two jobs, while being the only one who does any of the household chores. I was isolated from the few friends I did have. I finally had enough about 6 months ago and told him to pull up his boots or I'm gone. I've tried to end things many times, but then I get guilty back into the relationship. I'm not saying it's all been bad, but it's not been great either. When I was a kid, this is what I would do. And the more I open my eyes to everything he's done or made me feel and my kid feel, the more I resent him. I'm not saying I've never done anything wrong in this relationship. No one is perfect. But I feel the one I failed the most was my son. There's way more to this than what I've put in this post in terms of the things that have happened, been said or done. I can give more details if anyone wants them, but I thought I'd start with the basics. Am I overreacting, wanting it to just be done with?